Hello class, my name is Jarrell Bennett, and today me and my group will be discussing The Prince. But before we get into the actual story, I would like to share some background information about Niccolo Machiavelli. Machiavelli was born May 3rd, 1469, to a middle-class family in Florence, Italy. Italy entered the 1400s without a stable government. At this particular time, Italy was strongly affected by the rise of humanism through the Renaissance. During the 1300s, Italy struggled with laws, wars, and rebellions, but because of different works from scholars, writers, and artists in Italy states, the Renaissance grew.
The first three chapters, Machiavelli talks about the principalities, the hereditary principalities, and the new principalities. The hereditary principalities are principality ruled by a prince whose family has controlled the principality for several generations. Hereditary principalities, according to Machiavelli, are generally easy to rule. The new principalities, Machiavelli says, are either completely new or new appendages to existing states. By fortune or strength, a prince can acquire a new principality with his own army or with the arms of others. There are two ways to govern a principality. The first involves a prince and appointed ministers. While the ministers help govern, everyone remains subservient to the prince. The second way involves a prince and his nobles. Nobles are not appointed by the prince, but they benefit. In chapters 3 and 4, Machiavelli talks about war and how a prince can maintain war. In order to hold a state, a prince must understand statecraft and warcraft. The two are intertwined. War can be avoided by suppressing disorder. However, one can never escape a war. War can only be postponed to the enemy's advantage. Machiavelli in chapter 5 talks about how to govern cities and principalities. Machiavelli describes three ways to hold states that have been accustomed to living freely under their own laws. The first is to devastate them. The second is for the conqueror to occupy them. And the third is to allow the state to maintain its own laws but to charge the state taxes and to keep the state friendly.
I will be covering chapter 8 through 11. Machiavelli described the way a man can become a prince and how to be fortunate and prosperous even with a criminal act or background. For example, King Agathocles of Syracuse is a man who rose to power through crime. And because he rose through power of crime, it was because a prince had to come to power through the favor of his fellow citizens. A prince must also strive to have a strong army and equipped and ready to face the aggressor. Machiavelli had tensions between common people and nobles. The statement between the statement brings Machiavelli in line with political philosophers such as Karl Marx, who viewed conflict as invictive aspects of citizen society.
Chapter 11 is titled Concerning Ecclesiastical Principalities. In this form of principality, Niccolo Machiavelli emphasizes the importance of strengthening the church. In this form of government, the church is the most powerful body or entity in all of the country. So in order to maintain power over the people, in order to maintain law and order, you must strengthen your church. It must be the driving force behind your rule. Chapter 12 is titled How Many Kinds of Soldiery There Are and Concerning Mercenaries. In chapter 12, Niccolo Machiavelli discusses mercenaries, auxiliaries, the mixture of both, and your very own soldiers. In this chapter, he stresses the importance of founding your arms in your very own soldiers. Mercenaries, auxiliaries, nor a mixture of both can be the foundation of your arms. Mercenaries and auxiliaries, according to Machiavelli, are undisciplined, ambitious, fearful in the sight of the enemy, and useless in times of war, as opposed to your very own soldiers, who are very much disciplined and have sworn allegiance to your country, and those are the men that are willing to die for the great of your principality. Chapter 13 is titled Concerning Auxiliaries, Mixed Soldiery, and One's Own. In this chapter, he goes a little more into detail about what we discussed in chapter 12. But in this chapter, I just would like to highlight an example he used, which was with Caesar Borgia, in which he went to war with a mixture of his own soldiers and auxiliaries. Well, in the time of war, his auxiliaries defaulted on him. Therefore, he destroyed them all and continued the war with his very own soldiers. Machiavelli discusses the importance of a prince's mastery of the subject of war. By the means of war, principalities rise to ultimate global powers. Due to neglect of war, many principalities have fallen and have succumbed to much larger principalities. So in this, it is obvious that the art of war must be mastered by a prince in order to maintain power as well as to expand his principality. One statement Machiavelli makes in his chapter is one I would love to highlight. And it goes, "A wise prince ought to observe some such rules, and never in peaceful times stand idle, but increase his resources with industry in such a way that they may be available to him in adversity, so that if fortune chances, it may find him prepared to resist her blow." So basically what the quote is saying is that it is important to continue to invest in your arms and invest in your knowledge of war, even at times of peace. So therefore, you can expect the unexpected, and when the unexpected happens, you will be fully prepared.
Machiavelli continues with chapter 18 concerning the ways in which a prince should keep faith. Well, a prince's word of honor is greatly appreciated, but history shows that more successful leaders are crafty, cunning, and able to confuse others in the prince's advantage. There are two ways of competing, and that is by law or by force, meaning you should have become half man, half beast. The beast part is using force, and the laws are the part when you are being a man. A great prince can lie to the people and still be viewed as a saint. Long as the prince appears trustworthy and kind in front of the people, it will dismiss the times when the prince does evil. A prince should avoid being despited and or hated. Avoid being hated at all costs is the main idea of this chapter. Two things the prince should worry about is internal threats and external threats. Strong armies keep foreign enemies out and also create a good ally. Fortress and many other things to which prince often resorts. Are they advantageous or hurtful? In history, it shows that when a prince disarms his subjects, it shows distrust, which leads to civil rebellion. The idea of a fortress can support the prince or tear him down. That depends on the conditions. A prince becomes great by defeating.
In chapter 24 of The Prince, Machiavelli goes and tells the reader that the reason why the princes of Italy have previously lost their states is because they have a lack of control, and the majority reason is because of their faults. Most previous princes live in that moment, lacking
the stability to maintain a prosperous kingdom. Only living in those helpful, prosperous times, they lose sight of the future. They only live in those current present moments. And being that they are prosperous now, they believe they will be prosperous. They believe that they will be prosperous later. Machiavelli says that past princes, and even for the princes coming up, need to be able to have the stability to control the kingdom and also gradually grow as the kingdom grows and changes. In chapter 25, Machiavelli discusses how the next prince of Italy should be able to grow in his throne, grow with the time, and change with the people. In order to be successful, Machiavelli believes that you should not continue to stay stuck in your ways, stay stuck in those times. For if you are successful now, that does not mean you will be successful later. Machiavelli believes in order to be successful, you need to change and grow with your kingdom to make it better and make it easier for you to succeed. Machiavelli believes that the longer that they stay and the longer they stay in the kingdom, they will grow much wiser, and they believe that being careful and growing wiser is what puts Italy one step closer to having a successful kingdom. And finally, in chapter 26, Machiavelli discusses how he would like to have the extortion to free Italy from the hands of barbarians. Machiavelli says that the only hope that he believed for the next prince of Italy, he puts it in the hands of Lorenzo. He believed Lorenzo, if anybody, can restore proper order to the kingdom and have the greatest impact in regaining the kingdom back from what he calls barbarians. Machiavelli also states in this chapter the issue of fate versus free will. He believes that fate also may help in making the kingdom a little better, considering the times and the actions of making that prince lucky this day, but may not be the next. He believes that free will also will take a turn, and free will deciding whether or not to make a move, to become ruthless, doing whatever you need to do to get your kingdom back in order. Machiavelli believes that people will and do control their own fate. Machiavelli does believe that the prince should be careful in controlling the kingdom, because taking in consideration his own fate, he does have to keep in consideration the people that he is controlling and make sure that he keeps a successful, striving kingdom.